Okay, we are into the final stretch of 76 Memories, celebrating 76 years since Steve Cannell entered the world. My dad went to be with Jesus in 2021 in January on the 18th, I believe, and we miss him. But today would have been his birthday, and he would have been having Texas sheet cake. So 64 to 75, just the fun, obsessive things. My dad wasn't super clean. His office was always a wreck. But sometimes something would get dirty to the point where he wanted to clean it. And we had these showers at our houses, and they would run on these metal tracks, and the metal tracks would get funkiness growing in them and get dirty. And my dad just wouldn't routinely keep the shower clean. What he would do is wait till it got really dirty. Then he would get the tools, and he would take the tracks off the shower, take the glasses out. He would scrub it with Barkeep's Friend and a toothbrush. He would go over every nook and cranny till it was reset. I mean, he disassembled the shower to clean it. Then he would put it back together. And my mom would just always laugh, says, why don't you just clean it routinely? But he wouldn't clean it until he could clean it by his standards, which meant taking it apart. My dad got obsessed with simple garments, and depending on what season of life he was at, he had different uniforms. And I loved it. He really wanted a Letterman jacket that wasn't affiliated with any school. And he got this generic gray Letterman jacket without a letter on it, but was monogrammed with his name, Steve Cannell. And he just loved the fact that it had no brand name on it. And then he found these cotton shirts he really liked that people normally would get screen printed, but he just bought a whole row of these shirts. And when he remarried and Susan and my dad got married, she spiffed up his wardrobe a bit. But before that, it was just t-shirts and matching screen printable items that never were screen printed that he would just wear the same every day. So he loved his generic clothing. He in Vietnam, he took every class on base he could take during free time, where most of his colleagues would go out, or fellow troops would go out partying. He would go to photography clinics and spend time in the darkroom. And that sounds like kind of a made-up story. It's like, oh yeah, Dad, yeah, you never partied, and on your time off, you were busy learning new skills. But the fact of the matter is, I have shoebox upon shoebox upon shoebox of photographs my dad took in Vietnam, because he spent a ton of time in the darkroom. And I found out I have a stack of letters that he wrote his family, and he would always describe in great detail what classes he was taking. So he always looked for a chance to level up. I look forward to getting those pictures scanned pretty soon and getting them online. My dad once came up with this idea in 1983 of how Social Security could remain solvent. I don't know the details of it, but he had a word processing program, and an Apple II computer, and a dot matrix printer. And he loved the idea with a word processor that he could just change the name and send a letter, snail mail, to every congressman. And I remember hearing that printer go nonstop for a couple weeks as he mailed every congressman about his plan to keep Social Security solvent. I don't think it really came to anything, but I love that story. And also, I can date any pictures of my dad based on what hats he's wearing. And the first hat of his hat obsession I remember is the Greek fisherman's cap, and he had two variations of that, kind of like a flat cap, but had more of a ridge. Then he had different Xavier hats, or Cincinnati Reds hats he would wear. Then he got very picky about what kind of cap top it would have and what texture it would have. In fact, this was one of his hats. And then he would buy them en masse. And I think his favorite hat, he had a hat from his favorite deli, and he had a hat from the University of Chicago, where his daughter went. He always wanted people to ask her about that. So my dad wearing hats, and I've taken to, as I've lost my hair, to wearing hats a lot too. Safety. He wanted us all to have Life 360 installed on our phones so we could all track each other's GPS location in case something happened. And actually, it came in handy a lot of times. So we ended up having the entire extended family of all the Cannells being tracked all over the globe, wherever they're at on this app. And what we ended up doing is he installed it on my grandfather Nick's iPhone. Grandpa Nick didn't know about it, but we could track wherever Grandpa Nick was. And I would love that. So I would just see, oh, he's at the diner. I'll just go to the diner. And Grandpa just thought we just kept showing up to places he was at. He didn't realize that my dad had him tracked by satellite. So that's another, my dad was really concerned about safety. He bought these stickers that would help track our phones and computers and everything, and offered some kind of reward if you did it back, but it never made sense to us. But he would always insist, do you have your track it back sticker on your item? And on a really serious note is Adrian to this day just talks about being welcomed in the family. She's like, when I entered the family, it's like I was a biological child. I was never second class or anything. And Adrian, immediately just started calling him dad, because not because he said, will you call me dad? Or that it's just because he was dadding all the time. So what else are you going to call him? I remember at the Beach Boys 20th anniversary special live in Honolulu, Hawaii, they unveiled at the end of the special a new song Brian Wilson had written called The Spirit of Rock and Roll, but it was done during the credits, and there was talk over on it and stuff, and he was so excited about that song being released, so he would rewind the Betamax tape of that and write down the lyrics till he knew every bit of the song you could possibly know before it was released. And I remember years later I was able to get a bootleg, because it wasn't actually officially released until maybe 10 years ago. But I remember how excited I was able to give him a version of that song with Brian Wilson and Bob Dylan singing it together, The Spirit of Rock and Roll. I loved going to Dick Dale concerts with my dad. We must have seen Dick Dale about 6 times. And my dad would just be grinning at what a master of the Fender Stratocaster Dick Dale was. And we got a lot of selfies at those shows. And Memory 75, it's a pretty big deal, is that Dad didn't need to know everything about his faith. He believed in Jesus, believed in God. There's a lot he didn't understand, and he didn't have this idea that in order to be good with God, he had to know everything. And he had a pretty big mystery box. And he was one of my favorite people to talk about theological speculations, and what is heaven like, and what is God like, and how does free will work, and what about evil in the world. And we especially really enjoyed responding and reacting to things Greg Boyd would say in his sermons about open theism and stuff. So that's Memory 75. Wow. And I'm going to have a bonus round after this.